We're
We're
back.
live.
We're back. 2025, man.
Let's go.
We'd see y'all next year.
We made it.
Here we are.
The year has begun.
Our apologies to the internet.
Hey, little last bit of holiday stuff.
Oh yeah.
I still have my tree up, but I was gone for so much of the holiday season that I gotta keep it up and enjoy it. And the other thing is check out what I'm drinking.
What is that?
You can see this.
Oreo Coke.
Coke Zero Oreo flavor. Now, the fun part about this is that Oreo made a Coca-Cola edition of Oreo.
Okay.
Where the it had like Pop Rocks in it, so it gives you like the fizzy feeling, and also had definitely a Coke, sort of that burned Coke taste to it. And this is the last one. I tried really hard to find these. I was able to find 4 bottles at a local CVS, so I bought all 4. This is the last one. We're ending the holiday season with a Oreo flavored Coke.
I feel like that might actually be good with some whiskey. Maybe we were peanut buttered whiskey and it would taste just like a Reese's or something.
Oh my gosh. That would be like way too much flavor going on.
It'd be like, what is going on here?
What is happening? I feel like the Civil War is happening in my mouth.
In my mouth.
Both sides are losing.
Yeah. Oh my God. Who was that? Was it Howard Stern years ago? He had this model on there, and she's like, well, I'm, unlike other models, I'm very smart. I know things about history. And oh, really? That's great. Well, in fact, we knew that about you, and we prepared a list of questions. And so one of the questions was, who won the Civil War? And she said, oh, I know this one. Who won the Civil War? We did. And he goes, we did. We won the Civil War. Let me think about that. Robin, what do you think? She's like, I think that's accurate. I think that's accurate. Wow, that's right. You got that one right too. I was like, oh my God.
I mean, yeah,
we did.
It's true. We did win.
Ironically, we also lost. It's like that Groucho Marx, thus causing and curing indigestion at the same time.
It's funny that you say that. I actually think that's the right way to think about the Civil War. A lot of people, I think, look at it like, the good side won, the bad side lost, or whatever. It's like, no, all of us collectively, the entire country, both won and lost the war simultaneously. And if you don't feel that way, I feel like, maybe you're not truly an American.
There might be something wrong with you.
Yeah. Like you should feel patriotism both when you hear when Johnny comes marching home
and Dixie
and marching through Georgia.
Oh
yeah,
that's a tough
like if you're not like die rebel scum, and then also like the Bonnie blue flag that bears a single star. Like you have to be able to sing both with pride. And
now it's interesting because I sent you a few days ago a link to a Star Wars video where the author made I thought, very persuasive case of how actually the Empire were the good guys. The Empire were the good guys, and the rebels were actually, and it's like it just plays to I think one of the core ideas was, like we're just as Americans predisposed to be on the side of the rebels, regardless of whether we share their values, because just, hey, screw the man, right? Like,
you want to dump the tea into the harbor? Let's do it together.
Let's go. We're going. I thought it was
interesting. It depends on which rebels. It's really strange. I feel like there's been kind of an odd ambivalence towards sort of just general feelings of rebellion lately, and I don't know what to make of that. Like, people,
Americans, you mean?
Americans, yeah. Like we were kind of joking about last time finding a metaphor. Like, do you want to? Which side of the civil rights argument do you want to be on? Well, certainly you want to be on the side of.
I want to be on the side of history. That's
his side of history, right?
Yeah.
Which side of the lobotomy debate do you want to be on? I want to be on this other side, right? I want to be the side that was like thought it was bad,
Right.
Was standing in the way of progress because progress wasn't progress.
Progress is dubious.
Yeah, so it's like, hey, here's the next George Washington. It's like, well, we want to be on the side of George Washington.
Of course.
First in war, first in peace, first in the hearts of his
First in the hearts of his
countrymen.
countrymen. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good one. Yeah.
But the other option is that it's Jefferson Davis. It's like, do you want? Did you want to be on the side of Jefferson Davis? Like, no.
And really, frankly, I mean, we're giving Jeff a tough time here, but it's not because, I mean, I'm sure he was a great guy. I mean, some of these rebels are good people.
There's good people on both sides, I'm sure.
Good people on both sides, right?
Yeah.
I just feel like, just because he lost, and we don't really support losers in this country. I think that's really what it is. It's like if you're a winner.
Well, no, it's all the stuff that he said that was in support of slavery.
Is that? Well, I mean, yeah,
that's the problem. That's the problem. But then you take a look at the people. So Virginia secedes.
He wasn't for slavery. He was for states' rights.
No. Like, read the stuff he actually says. He's in favor.
He was supporting the states' rights to have slaves. That's all. In this particular case, I mean, as time progressed, though, if their project had been successful, it would have been something else. Eventually, the states' rights to,
piracy. I don't know, but the funny thing is, it's like, okay, Virginia secedes, and we're like, how dare they? You broke up the Union, and then like you have those counties, northern counties in Virginia, they're like, well, we're seceding from you, and we're like, brave, bold choice, we welcome you into the Union as an additional state. We'll call this northern part of Virginia West Virginia.
West Virginia. Yeah, we're not going to call it North Virginia. West Virginia. Yeah.
Anyway, who knows? Yeah. Who knows what kind of rebellion? I'm kind of excited about next Monday. I'm hoping there's some like big time protests. If there's not big time protests, I will be upset.
Be super disappointing. Yeah, it really will. And honestly, I think I'm gonna have to bet on the fact that there won't be. So,
really?
Yeah, I just don't
last
think so.
time there was a bunch of cars burned. You had people in the streets shouting, "No!" Like, I'm not gonna do that again.
I think people are over it, man. I mean, it's sad. It's sad. It's like nobody's willing to really fight for our democracy anymore. And so
wait, no, it's our democracy. You got to put our in front of it.
Our democracy. That's right. That's right. Yeah. Oh my gosh, when you pointed that out to me, just for people that are watching don't know, like Russ pointed out in the conversation, he was like, you notice they're not really saying that they're fighting for democracy, because fighting for democracy would involve listening to the voters. Who wants to do that? We're fighting for our democracy, which means the system that we, the collective we, or the rich people that actually run things, they've built this system. That's what we're fighting for, our democracy. And sometimes we have to protect our democracy from the will of the people.
The will of the people,
yeah. Right. Yeah.
Like, when you say our democracy, they're not talking about you and me. They're talking about themselves.
They're talking about themselves, exactly. Yeah. I was like, oh, that's actually interesting. Now that I replaced that in my mind there.
Like, nice. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Like,
yeah.
Oh, well, and what was the that podcast that you sent me a while back, where it's like, well, when democracy doesn't mean people voting, it means democratic institutions.
Correct.
And democratic institutions, like, we have to protect those from people voting. And so
totally.
Like, that's the new democracy is really just like an aristocracy of some kind, or an oligarchy.
But I feel like we as Americans are uniquely fortunate in that, I mean, 100 years ago now, Woodrow Wilson, those were smart guys. And, they put together all these agencies and institutions. And now it's like, I mean, they already did that. We don't have to do that again. They already did it. So all we have to do now is just shut up and do what they tell us. And I think everything will be fine.
Everything will be fine.
Everything will be fine. Yeah, that's right.
It's no problem.
That's right. It is odd. And I pointed this out to somebody recently. We were having a conversation about, actually, I have one for you, but, and in fact, hold on. We'll just leave that thought. Okay. This was an interesting question. So, since we have friends that watch, some of you will be familiar with the conversation I'm talking about. So there was a conversation a few days ago. I was at a party, And this conversation came up is that now that we're talking about racism,
Oh wow.
okay?
Okay.
So
Let me just
in my mind, racism is the idea that I would make value judgments about an individual based on the race that I perceive they belong to, right? So,
okay.
uh, right, so that person looks black. All black people are like this, therefore you are like this as well, right?
Okay.
Um, if that's the way, you know, so obviously a white person could be racist against black people or Mexicans. A Mexican could be racist against white people or black people. Black people could be racist against. Okay, that's the way I understood this term to mean.
Okay.
Um, but
So for you, the word racism was synonymous with, or maybe we'll just say like a specific version of bigotry.
or prejudice, yeah,
Yeah.
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 So
But you could be bigoted about all sorts of stuff, but you're bigoted about this one thing.
about race, and therefore you are a racist, or you are exhibiting racist thoughts, or whatever you want to call it, right?
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a person experiencing racism. We could say that. There we go. I'm a person experiencing racism because I have these
Participating
thoughts.
in.
I have these bigoted thoughts about this other
Sure.
race or people that belong to that race. Okay,
Okay.
but I was being educated at this party that actually that idea, I mean, is not correct. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, what is the correct meaning of racism? And they're like, well, it's uh, because minorities. This was the person was telling me this.
Mhm.
Let's say a black person. It's impossible for a black person to be racist because they're in the minority, or Mexican, or whoever. Right? Any minority race cannot be racist because they're a victim, right, of the system. So the white people are in charge, and because white people are in charge, white people can be racist because they're running the system. But a person who is a minority in that system can't be racist because they're a victim of the racism, like the if that makes sense.
Mhm.
And so we looked it up in the dictionary. I'm like, well, the dictionary says this, and they're like, yeah, but the dictionary was written by white people. So I'm like, okay, so well, what do you call it then when, let's say, a minority person has what I used to call racist feelings towards,
But
let's say, a majority person?
right.
Well, that's just prejudice, or whatever. It's not racism. And I
Okay.
was like, okay, all right. So, and again, I'm the type of person, I don't really get hung up on definitions. I just whatever word you want to use, we'll use it. That's fine. But I was also like, but I'm glad we had this conversation because the definitions we use does matter in this conversation, in the sense that I would be talking about this thing and you'd be talking about this other thing. So, like, um,
Mhm.
what are your thoughts on that? Have you heard this argument before?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I feel like this argument's been going around for, gosh, 10, 12 years now.
I'm
Um,
late to the party.
well, I'll tell you one thing. I think we agree on this. Whenever anybody appeals to the dictionary to solve some sort of conceptual issue, something's
They're
going
losing.
wrong. Yeah, like how like I can tell you what lexically that word means, but so what?
Yeah.
Like
How are we using it in this conversation? Yeah.
right, right, and also I think though one of the tricky parts about this is that there's some words that are kind of like magic words, and
You mean where you get electrocuted if you use them?
well,
That kind of word?
so for people our age, one of the magic words is the word love. So like think of like you're dating someone and the first time you say I love you, and you're like, well, now love, what exactly do you mean by that? It's like, well, love can mean all sorts of different things. It could mean affection, it could mean a kind of self-sacrificial thing, it could be obsession. I'm obsessed with you, all
Sure.
those things could mean love. And so if you said, well, no, I love you, but I love you in this way, and you're like very specific, it's like, well, yeah, but it's a magic word, right? That word, if you say they use the L word, then um, it means something just within, like it has this extra glow to it, right? It's a shiny word, right?
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm with
Right.
you.
So
Yep.
racism, I think, is like a shiny word like this. It's a magic word. And so it's very, very bad to be called a racist. And even if, even, which makes it very
Well,
tricky in this case.
according to this person, though, that's not the case. Like, as a white person, by definition, I am racist. Like, we are all white people are racist, but we just don't know we're racist because we're
Right.
benefiting from this privilege in the system that we live in, that is
Yeah.
subjugating all these
So,
people without power, and so therefore we are a participant in this, in racism, basically.
yeah. So I would think of it sort of like the way maybe like the word evil or disgusting is kind of a magic word where you say, well, no,
Okay.
when I mean disgusting, what I mean is that some other animals might find your odor to be offensive. And you're like, yeah, but what does that have to do with anything? And you say, you're disgusting. Like, whoa, whoa. It's like, well,
That
no,
cuts through.
I just
That
mean it
cuts through.
this
Yeah.
way. Like, that doesn't mean anything bad about you particularly. It's just that you're like, well, no, 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 you can't say that because of like sort of like as a token. That is a token of approbation. Like I've labeled you as something bad or evil.
Unacceptable. Yeah, yeah. I got
Right.
it. Okay.
Right. So if I say, "Oh yeah, well you're racist," and it's like, "What? Whoa, whoa! Why are you saying that? Like I'm part of the bad people. I'm evil now. Like what did I do? What did I say?" And you're like, "Well, you didn't say anything. You didn't do anything.
You
In
didn't
fact,
have to.
in
You
fact,
just are,
you might have spent your entire life trying to help people that are different from you. Doesn't matter, right? It's
because you're
like
a white savior. You're still racist.
you're still
Yeah,
racist,
just
So it's
you
like
believe that everybody needs your help. That's
yeah, so
racist.
that itself is
Is
problematic or
racist. Yeah.
toxic or something like that.
Right.
And then it's like, well, okay, so I'm a good person. You actually think I'm an admirable, maybe even saintly, and I still deserve this term. Then it's like, well, that's kind of weird to use an evil term or like a this sort of approbation term to do that.
Hmm.
So I think that's kind of odd. But let's say we had no emotions. We're Vulcans. We,
Right.
it's like words have no emotional context for us. Um, and then I might ask, like, well, what's for a person, what's worse and what's better? So I said, would it be worse for someone to have benefited? Let's say they really did benefit from a system of oppression through no fault of their own, like the just of accident of birth.
Accident of birth. Yeah.
They were born here instead of there, to this parents instead of those parents, and so on. Uh, is that better or worse than being bigoted and prejudicial? And it seems like I would think that being bigoted and prejudicial is worse.
Yeah. It's interesting. I did not formulate a question like that. That would have been really good. If
So
only I had. If only I had a PhD. Uh, but could have come up with that. But I suspect that the person would have said. I don't want to put words in their mouth, but I suspect they would have said that actually. Um, yeah, for an individual, that's worse.
mhm,
But society itself is built this way, and there's
sure.
that's the evil that we need to be fighting. Is you know, and it was
Mm,
very. I mean, it was very. I mean, nobody yelled at each other. It was an interesting
yeah.
conversation. It was a conversation of discovery. It was still. I was like, it's interesting. Because I think so much of the way I listen personally is like agree/disagree filter. Like, do I agree with this? Do I not agree with that? Are they
Mhm,
making any sense? Uh, rather than let me try to discover and understand what the f you're talking about.
sure, sure.
And so like, but in this particular case, I was really proud of myself because I was like, help me understand.
We understand what you mean. Well,
Where are you coming from? And how would this set of beliefs, if I adopted it, how would that benefit me? I mean, I don't know that this viewpoint is benefiting you at all, but
so yeah, I mean that's another. So
that's a
what?
question for another day, maybe. But
Well, no,
you know,
when I've talked to folks that have this view, one of the things that I always ask is what would a victory condition look like? Like at what point, what would the world be like to where you said, yeah, the war's over.
we win. Yeah,
We won. We won. We all won because this horrible thing that's actually been harming all of us is gone
is
now.
in the past. Yeah,
Isn't we can teach about it in history and we're no longer affected by it. Like what would that be? And I always think that you can tell the difference between the people who can answer that question and the people that can't. as far as like what their activism is really like.
Mm. Yeah, I
You know,
guess so. If somebody believes that there is no winnable condition, like it's just that's a then yeah. What's the point of your activism then? Right? There's
yeah,
no
we might as well be talking about like a religious condition. Like it's like, oh,
right,
original sin. You know, what are we
right.
going to do about
Original
original
sin.
sin? We're not
Yeah,
going to do anything about it. You can never get rid of it. It's like, well, what if I'm good? My whole life doesn't matter. You know,
doesn't
like
matter.
original
Yeah.
sin is still there. You know, it's like, oh well, that's religion. You know, there you go.
Yeah,
Um,
it's so interesting you bring original sin up because I was having a conversation with
no.
Loa years ago, and Loa was asking different questions about faith and whatnot. Like, well, do you guys believe this? Do you believe that? Whatever. And I'm like, well, some of these questions are really good. Like, I don't even have an answer. That particular one though, because she was like, well, the whole like, what if somebody lives a good life and whatever else? I'm like, yeah, well, so the idea I said, I'm not sure how I feel about it. I mean, frankly, like there's certain thing you could lay out this doctrine and say, well, no, the scripture says blah blah blah. But you can also lay out anyway. But I think there's two prevailing views. One is that you're born in sin, and there's nothing you can do about it. And then there's this other view that actually you're born in love. You're in the image of God, so to speak. And it's up to you to pollute that or to hew as closely as you can and whatever else, right? And I said, now between those two, like just in very general terms, like what are your thoughts about that, right? And she said she thought about it for like 2 seconds, not even very long. And she was like, "Oh, I like the original sin better," and which is
It's so
interesting.
explanatory.
Well, because and it was kind of funny because like I would have thought the opposite, and she
Yeah.
was like, I was like, "Why?" And she goes, "Well, that's great. I mean, like, if there's nothing you can do about it, and you were born this way, well, then that just, you're off the hook. I didn't do this. This is just the way I was built."
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I didn't wish to be a madman. The gods willed it.
I don't
Yeah.
deserve this, right? She goes, and I started laughing. I'm like, "Man, that's such a perfect Loa answer," you know. I'm not accountable for that. That wasn't me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes when I have talked to people like this, where it's like, no, 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 it's the system and it's everywhere, and it's like it almost does seem like kind of a religious
Like that.
doctrine, you know,
It's
and
like,
and
well,
I
so what am I supposed to do about that? Nothing.
yeah,
I can't do
probably
anything
nothing,
about it.
you know, and like if you talk to people about like let's say you looked at the writings of say so not racism but sexism, like the first wave feminists, they want the right to vote. They want the right to own property. They want to, an enumerated set of rights. It's like we're going to go get these through the political process, um, and
Because men have those, women should have those too. We're all
we
humans.
do,
Yep.
and like this will be good for society. We have to make that case, and they did, and like first wave feminism is over in America because it's done.
You've achieved all the rights. Yeah.
You achieved those goals, and
But
you can say, well,
if you talk to a current feminist, I mean, like most feminists, women that are hardcore on the feminist side, they disagree with that. In fact, you could never really achieve parity because you're laboring under millennia of this was a man's world, and so we have to have enough. I was like, okay, so however long, what are we, 7,000 years of recorded history? So you need 7,000 years of a female dominated world, and then we can talk
that's a
about
start. It's a start.
that's a start,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Is like I always kind of wonder, where I feel like the and I don't want to say real feminists, but like the feminists that I have the most respect for are the ones that are fighting for those basic human rights in countries or parts of the world where women don't
Where they
have
don't
them.
have them. Yeah.
So like if someone is say in Afghanistan fighting the good fight against you know, restrictions on female education by the Taliban. Like that to me looks like, wow, women's rights are human rights. Let's go do this. If it's something like, some kind of quota somewhere, or you did a survey and there's not enough CTOs of large companies or something. It's like, well, we could work on that. Like that's something that could. But how important is that compared to some kid not being allowed to read because they're a woman, like that seems, I don't know, like
It kind of reminds
it's
me of
weird. It's
It kind
weird.
of reminds me of that starfish story. Um, you know the one I'm talking about, the kid on the beach.
Uh,
Not that starfish story. So there's a kid on the beach. So there's a huge hurricane, big storm or whatever. The next
okay.
morning, this guy goes walking on the beach, and on the beach that have washed up millions of starfish. Right? They're just
Yeah.
as far as you can see. They're up there and they're dying. They're suffocating or whatever it is. And there's a kid who's on the beach and he's picking up starfish and he's throwing them one by one into the ocean.
Okay.
And the guy says, "Son, what are you doing?" He goes, "I'm saving the starfish. Look at him. I'm saving the starfish." And the guy goes, "Son, just hold on. Just take a minute and look. Like, there's no way that you're going to be able to save all those starfish." And the kid looks and he gets really dejected for a minute. And he looks down in his hand. He has a starfish in his hand. And he throws it into the ocean. He goes, "Well, I helped that one."
Yeah. Yeah.
And then keeps going.
Keeps going. Yeah. Like,
Yeah. 'Cause, I mean, hey, I can do what I can do. Like,
got two hands.
yeah, I got two hands. Let's save the
Let's get to
starfish.
work. Yeah. So like thinking about like the racism question as you brought up, like for the systemic racism part, what does an end goal look like? And I'll give you an option here. So here's an option.
Well,
That
frankly, we're not qualified to even deal with this because even though we're half Middle Eastern, we look white, and so therefore we're not qualified
no,
to speak about this,
well,
according to my friend.
yeah, but that's a historically not an informed opinion to have. So um,
I agree. I didn't know the right words to say that to their face. So,
yeah, it's like no,
yeah,
no. So here's just one thing to keep in mind. I mean, if you're looking at like systems designed to oppress people, um, most of the oppression that white people have dealt with is white on white oppression. So like the word slave comes from the word Slav, right? Slav is slave, right? So it's like all those Eastern European people that we go and raid like they're barbarians. We raid them and bring them back as slaves. And it's like, oh, you have slaves. In this country, in the U.S., think of the amount of systems that were set up against both Irish people and Italian people. You had like anti-Catholic leagues. There was, like
nonpartisan.
nonpartisan. And together, you would have places where you weren't allowed to go. You couldn't. I mean, there was sort of de facto, if not de jure, segregation involving, especially Catholics, Irish, and Italians, especially. Um, there was a lot of systems put into place for the Irish and Italians to hate each other. So it's like, hey, you go fight each other, so that then the good people can look down on those, unwashed people. Yeah,
Right.
you'll be excluded from stuff. I mean, and this persisted for decades and decades. I mean, even Kennedy, as the first Irish and Catholic,
And Catholic.
there was a lot of propaganda put out against him that he was basically being controlled by the Pope,
By
and
the
that,
Pope. Yeah. I remember. Yeah. I
um,
don't remember, but I remember reading about it.
well, I mean, there were whole articles
Yeah.
in the 1800s written about how like the Anglo-Saxon um, physiognomy and stuff was superior to the Celtic origin of
Oh,
the
sure.
Irish and the people in the north of Scotland are like, eh.
Now, where have I heard that philosophy before?
Yeah. So here's the thing though. Um,
Bad
nobody
ideas die hard, man. I tell you, they
that
just
it
die
just
hard.
that doesn't matter. The thing is that doesn't matter anymore. Like I find it historically hilarious that people would line up Germanic, French, Anglo-Saxon,
Right.
and then Irish and Italian and Eastern European, Russian, put them all in a row and be like, white people. It's like, wow,
That it is interesting, right? Yeah,
these
because that's a new phenomenon.
that is new. So,
Yeah, that's new
um,
in the last 50 years. New, like,
yes,
yeah.
extremely new.
To your
So,
point, yeah.
so, um, so there is a case right there of a win condition. No one sits there and go, "Oh, you're Italian? What you said your last name was?
Right.
Your dad's name is Giuseppe?" He's like, "We'll call
Yeah.
you. Don't call us." It's like
Yeah.
that doesn't happen anymore. It doesn't matter. Like, it's not like, I'm not gonna let my daughter date someone,
Yeah, that's
like
very
that,
interesting. Yeah, that's
right?
very interesting.
It's just
Yep.
gone. So you say, okay, here's a model for us. When that's gone systemically as a country, when it's gone, and it's the same way that now we look at it, the Italian and Irish thing is like just a historical artifact. We know we've won. We've won as a society. We made it. And it's like,
And it's
there you go.
interesting too, because that didn't take very long. I mean, you're talking about 1960s to today.
It's not that long.
That's not that far, you know. Yeah,
Yeah.
60 years. Yeah.
Now, there was a lot of stuff as a society that we did to try to fix this. Like Columbus Day being one, St. Patrick's Day being another. It's like, here's a chance for all of us to be Irish. I'm like, why would I want to be a dirty Celt? And it's like, am I a Mick?
Because our beer is so much better.
Yeah, I'm gonna drink
Yeah.
green beer like these pot lickers. It's like, yeah, you are. It's gonna be
Pot
great.
lickers.
Um, so, but that's the thing. It's like, great. We'll figure it out. But it's a thing where like society wanted that. We wanted to do that. So, you know, do we want to do that for what we would think of as like the systemic racism of today? I don't know. I mean, personally, I would. I think that
I
sounds
would. Yeah.
awesome.
I mean, yeah, exactly.
But anyway, that's a win condition. And usually when I talk to people, they either have win conditions, in which case I think they're serious, or they don't, in which case I think it's like you've just been, reading too many sociology books.
Or perhaps you haven't given it enough thought, and I think that's um, I think that I mean it's fair to say that a lot of times, I mean, and I'm guilty of this too, is you hear an idea, the idea sounds good, because it supports the downtrodden, or those of us that have less opportunity than others, et cetera, and you're like, okay, well, I want to default to a condition that supports people, not you know uh, discards them or whatever, right? And so it's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, yeah, I'll sign up for that, yeah, absolutely, sign me up, right? Um, but then without thinking through, like, okay, here's our agenda, and here's what we're targeting as our first benchmark, and at what point do you win the game? Like those are, I think in so many areas of life, frankly, like we would be benefited so much more if we did think about life as a game, where it's like, hey, whatever you're doing, right? Like your job, your marriage, you're raising your kids, all these different things. Like instead of thinking of it as like, oh, this is a role that I do, it's more like, okay, what this is the game that I'm playing, and then it forces you to think in terms of objectives and guidelines and repeatable processes and things like that, rather than just phoning it in every day.
Well, and
Potentially.
and um if we have listeners that are like, man, I don't like sort of gamified words, or I don't want to translate into even like management speak. We're talking about deliverables and stuff. Just think about it as, I mean, as we're walking towards MLK Day here, like just think about what's your dream for the future. And so if you say, oh, here's someone talking about racism, it's everywhere, it's a systemic thing. It's like, okay, cool. Um, what's your dream for the future on this? And if they don't have one, then it sounds to me like, well, you're just complaining. And like, okay,
Or take
cool.
some time and think about it so that you're not complaining. Yeah.
Yeah, like let's take the next step. Like, you should have something where you think to yourself, life is good, but it could be better. And here's where I think it should go.
Mhm.
Here's how it would be better. And how to maybe then you can think like, how do we get there? So anyway,
I like it.
that's
I like
that's
it.
my take.
I like it. Well, okay. Speaking of games, let's go back to January 20th and your
Oh
projection.
no. Oh
No,
no.
no. Did you get a chance to read the or skim the Jack Smith report?
No, I was at the eye doctor today. My pupils are like still dilating, so I can barely see anything. So
Uh,
unfortunately, I was not able to read the riveting tale of illegality that Jack Smith put together. How was it? Was it good?
well, and it
Was it a page turner?
it touches on a lot of. I mean, I think it's useful to look at and
Yeah.
understand. I know there's a lot of people on, let's say, the right, who would be eager to discount the whole thing and be, oh, this is just politically motivated, whatever. Yeah, in which case, I mean, yeah, it could be. And
Well,
for sure, to me, it's like there's it's unquestionably politically motivated uh, report. Okay, for sure. Um,
well, it's okay
that
though.
being
Like, what were some of the highlights? Like, what about it
well,
was so interesting?
well, the big thing for me, it's nothing I didn't know before, but just
Okay.
like to me, the whole January 6th, and we've had many rounds of it, you and
Yeah.
I. The whole January 6th conversation typically gets reduced down to did did Trump call for them to storm the Capitol or not, right? Like, if he wasn't inciting them to violence, like if he said peacefully protest and it got out of hand, that's not on him. Is usually the argument that um, it couldn't have been any clearer. Like, look at his tweet, look at this, look at that, and it's just it's unfortunate things got out of hand. And
Had
then
that video saying "Go home, you have to obey law enforcement." So,
Right, and then and usually like somebody from the right having this conversation will usually insert as well. Um, the agitators were most likely undercover FBI agents that were whatever,
we
and
know at
now
least some of them
The
were.
FBI has even admitted that they had people there.
Yeah.
Did they participate? Not participate? Whatever the case may be. But so like, and to me, I've always my point of view on it has always been let's pretend I grant you all of that. Okay, I grant you everything you just said. Okay, you still, to me, need to be able to explain or at least deal with all of the pre-January 6th stuff that the administration was doing to undermine
Like
the
the Kraken lawsuit and all that stuff. Yeah.
all of that. And
Yeah. Yeah.
so in the report, he has all these different, obviously sworn testimony from people. And let's pretend everybody that swore their testimony is a big fat liar, right? Maybe that's the case. But you would have to get there in order to discard the entire narrative that he's laying out there. Like, even during the time, I think back in 2020, 2021, when we were having this conversation in real time leading up to January 6th, I was like, hey, I had talked to enough people that were close to that, the Trump team back then,
Yeah.
and they were telling me like, hey, here's our plan, here's what we're doing, we're going to try to do this to invalidate or at least cause enough questions around the certified vote totals,
Yeah.
and
For this or that state. Yeah.
all Pence needs to do is basically say, "Hey, we just need a second look. We'll send this back to the states." When they send it back to the states, there's no way, because there is no state. Each state has their own process for review, and there are enough Republicans in the state houses of enough states that you would lose a quorum of electoral votes. And if you lose the quorum of electoral votes, and you don't have enough legit, certain electoral vote count, then it throws the election into the House of Representatives, and we have enough Republicans in there to
Right.
reelect Trump. And that was the entire plan. And so, since then,
Hmm.
I can't remember the attorney's name now; it's escaping me. But the attorney the guy that Trump had out there, John something or other, he was the architect of the whole thing,
Okay.
and but he's admitted it in writing. I mean, they wrote a pro. It wasn't even like, well, why is that a crime? Like, that their whole point of view is like, look, those processes exist in the Constitution, and so yeah, we're just trying to throw enough question on what the votes say, because at the end of the day, like, the Electoral College elects the president. So if the Electoral College can't get enough votes together, then it goes to the House. That's a constitutional process. How is that overturning the Constitution? We're using the Constitution to get the result that we wanted, right?
Okay.
Um,
Interesting.
that is interesting, and I get the point of view. And how can you not say that that's not subverting the election? Like, that is exactly what you're doing. Like, there is a process, and you're trying to throw enough wrenches in the process to knock enough of these pieces off the board to where you get your alternate path to victory that
Hmm.
is you know what I mean? And so I guess it almost, because one of the arguments that I heard from the right about this election cycle, which I agree with, is,
The
look,
2024 election.
the 2024
Okay.
election cycle is like, look, if you paint Trump, let's say, as the next Hitler and this huge tyrant and this dictator in waiting, what lengths would you not go to prevent that person from getting power? Like if you really believed, right, that let's say Trump is Hitler 2.0, whatever you want to call it. Uh, I mean, you would be justified in. I mean, if that was true, like Hitler was really back and he was about to take over your country, like there would be any resistance would be justifiable, if not like mandated. Like you would be obligated to morally defend, stop this, whatever mechanisms we need to use to keep this madman out of power, right?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. Well, going back then rewind to 2020, I think the attitude from the right, a lot of the louder voices on the right that were leading this whole charge is like, look, the election was stolen. We won the votes. Unfortunately, because they rigged the system, that true will of the people will never be expressed on paper the way that they intended it to because it's been subverted. And so therefore we have to do this in order to get the people's choice back in the White.
What's
at the end of the day, all of those
from the what is the movie? It's like, well, there's no law against stealing stolen property. It's like, well, yeah, there is, but it's like, but like, yeah, what do you stole? You already stole it. Like
you stole it. Yeah,
yeah. Like, what's the problem?
I think now you're in this realm of just complete uncertainty, like because at the end of the day, like even and this isn't. It's not like it's not the first time let's concede all those points. It's like, okay, well, I mean, Kennedy stole the election from Nixon in 1960. Like not only did they believe it then, but like I think it's pretty well,
close to certainty.
Yeah, like I mean, there's enough documentation out there that I mean they did that, and even Nixon at the time was like, his team was like, dude, these bastards, blah blah blah, they can't be allowed to get away with this, and even from his standpoint, it's like, look, I mean, yes, and they played the hand better than we did this time, and we'll just have to come back for another round, and I think the big difference between then and now is that so many people on both sides believed, not past tense, but maybe even present tense, we don't have another chance. Like if these guys get in, that's the end of America, as we know it. And so there is no waiting for next cycle. There won't be a next cycle if these people get it, right? And that's the whole. And then when you truly believe that, you can make some crazy decisions. So I don't think, I think without taking into account those and he does a really good job in the report. Again, I just skimmed the highlights of it and went through it. It's 170 pages, not a short read. But you don't need like really just the first part is kind of his here's what happened, and then the rest of it is supporting evidence
got an executive summary at the front.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'll check it out. Yeah, but go ahead. Sorry. Yeah.
Anyway, so I just to me, I think it's worth a read, even for people who support. I was listening to Stephen A. Smith the other day. I don't know if you ever listened to him, but he said exactly what I think, which is he's like, look, I didn't vote for him, but I'm not sad he won, and I think there's a lot of people that like me that consider themselves liberal or on the left or whatever the case may be, who couldn't get on board with all the nonsense that went down this last season. And it's like, look, I'm not a signatory. I didn't endorse. And at the same time, like, I'm not upset at this outcome either. And in fact, I'm kind of like, okay, well, let's see what happens. Right. So like, I'm positive, looking forward, all that kind of stuff. At the same time, I don't know how somebody could be a real Trump apologist and not need to respond to, some of this narrative anyway, some of these points.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting take. I'm one of the things that I've always wondered about from the 2020 election was how weird that whole election was. Like the stuff coming out of COVID, all the different laws that were set aside the last minute, the way that challenges to those setting aside of laws played out. Like some places, they were able to force the election system to go according to the law, and then other places it was kind of the Wild West. You had all sorts of really strange legal stuff, all documented. But like,
Yeah.
um, which makes me very sympathetic to the idea that that the next group comes in. They're looking at these results. And they're like, none of this makes any sense. This is all. There's clearly has been monkeying with the system. And so now we're gonna use this constitutional
pathway to
cure,
to,
basically,
to cure these shenanigans. Yeah.
to cure the shenanigans. And then it's like, I think a lot of it comes down to, like, if you see those shenanigans as um I don't know, like harmful
Justifiable.
anomalies, or if they were just, or what did Time call it when they were documenting this? They called it fortification. It's like, oh, when
Right.
we fortified the election. It's like, these weren't shenanigans. Like, this was done to help the election have greater integrity, and like hundreds of millions of dollars flowing to like these different NGOs and all this other stuff in order to help this or help that or get these ballots cured and not those and all. We fortified it. So I think like good people of of goodwill could look at it and say, there was some stuff that was messed up, and we'll just disagree about whether the people that did it were on the side of the angels and trying to help, or if it was like the dirty tricks of putting your thumb on the scale, and it's like, we can disagree on that.
Well, yeah. One thing is certain is everybody, and I believe this, everybody on both sides who was attempting to put their thumb on the scale of the process in whatever direction, they believed they were on the side of the angels for sure, right? Like, I mean, there's some people that are just out for power, but in general, like your average run of the mill Republican Trump supporter in 2020 that either participated in or was a fake elector or any of this other stuff that went on, they believe, I believe it. I mean, they believed in their heart that it was like, look, we're doing what we can to save our country from this takeover, right?
Mm-hmm.
They believe that. And in the same way, the people that say the non-Trump supporters who were shocked and appalled, right, and then decided, hey, well, we need to get to the bottom of this to make sure this never happens again. They also believe that they were. I mean, I really believe that. It's very difficult for me. I mean, to just look at somebody and ascribe these evil motives to,
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that at all. I think what'll be really interesting, and we won't probably find out in our lifetimes, but I'm thinking of like our grandkids when they're in high school reading about the 2020 election, and to find out then if this will be remembered as an attempted coup that was unsuccessful or a successful coup. And I think really one of those two is going to be the way history remembers it, and I don't know which one. I honestly don't. I think both of them are plausible. So
yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Hope I'm still alive when my kids are grandkids.
What? No, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like in 60 years, 70 years.
Yeah.
When all the people who are involved in this, they're all dead. It doesn't matter. Like, we're going through their memoirs. We're doing this stuff, and it's like, oh yeah, that's what happened. Like, we actually had a coup in 2020, and is this big coordinated thing. There's one of those coordination of intent without like specific coordination. Like, everybody wanted this to happen, and so they all did little things, and they made this happen. And then the people who tried to stop it were all branded as insurrectionists. They were held as political prisoners for 4 years, some without trial, and so on. And it's like, or
some of that stuff is just crazy to me. I mean, to me, it stepping aside from the whole who was in the right here, there, whatever. I don't see how you can argue for some of this Justice Department machinations or whatever you want to call them. The fact that they arrested some of these people and literally never filed charges on them. I mean, how does that not violate due process? How does it? I
Oh,
mean,
I think it's the strongest evidence in terms of like thinking of the historical arc. I think it's the strongest evidence that it was a coup. Because if it wasn't, there's no reason to hold these people for so long. There's no reason to make examples of them because it's like the truth is on your side. We won. It's like, oh, these people are just deranged. Let's give them a stern talking to and a ticket for trespassing and it's like, no, 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 we're going to hold them in solitary for years. There's going to be people that walk out of jail in DC that have been there from the entire Biden administration for the act of walking through, not touching anything, not destroying anything, not hitting, walking through the Capitol.
they didn't leave poop on the walls.
No, but anyway, that's like I said. If you're looking at it as like something a novelist would write, that is the strongest indicator that this was actually a coup that was successful.
Yeah.
And that's why we have to
You're when you say coup, you mean Biden taking over was a coup,
was a coup.
against the real will of the people. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because otherwise you don't need it. You don't need to hold those people. It doesn't matter. You know. So anyway, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you're a novelist,
Yeah.
you know, that doesn't mean it's historically correct. It's just like
Right. Well, we don't have to be because we're writing a novel. Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
right. That's
In
the
this
way you
other
would write.
in this other country called Americo. American.
American.
American. CON. American.
It's gonna be interesting. Do you have any predictions for the next 4 years? Maybe just the next year. First year of the Trump administration, predictions.
I don't think that Elon and Vivek are going to get anywhere close to $2 trillion. Um, that's one prediction that's easy to make. I think. Um, I think they're going to run into. In fact, my prediction on Doge is that they will run up against way more entrenched. You haven't even begun to see the system fight back yet. You know, about some of these intended changes. Um, I just think it's going to be a miracle to see. I mean, if Hegseth gets through, I don't know. Did you watch any of his testimony today? I didn't see.
I didn't.
Yeah,
I didn't get a chance to watch any of it.
yeah.
I
would
didn't
be.
hear any. I didn't hear any bombshells like, "Oh, he did terrible" or something. I didn't hear anything.
Yeah, I haven't. So I'm going to be real surprised if he makes it.
Really?
Yeah, 'cause, I mean, like all of these, if you think about it, all of these nominees, like they're not going to get any Democratic votes at all, and so they can only afford to lose a couple of Republicans. You know, I've heard some people on the right say, "Well, look, you know, these Republicans." Senators, you know, and they use Republican like this, right? Like these Republican senators, they gave Joe Biden, they put this person in charge of defense, this person in charge of the, you know, that these are all, you know, let's say not the best in terms of uh, capable, qualified, et cetera. I mean, like they just, you know,
They just rubber stamped it.
they rubber stamp. Okay, so if you could give Biden his nominees, but you won't give Trump his nominees, like what? How can you even call yourself? Uh, I think anybody that votes against any of these nominees is going to get primaried for sure,
Oh yeah.
for sure. And so then the question is just going to be like, well, which of these senators actually is that enough to cow them into, you know, doing whatever Trump says, or is there going to be an advice and consent? You know,
Well, no, it's not going to be enough because the reason why Biden's people got rubber stamped is because they are part of the standard Washington consensus, which involves regulatory capture and revolving door. So it's like we're all on the same side, you know. So like Lloyd Austin coming from Raytheon, it's like, hey, he's a
all
defense
good.
contractor coming back and forth. So
But you've got some rock throwing people in the glass house here. I mean, I mean, Tulsi and RFK,
no, that's what I'm
Hex,
saying. They're not gonna
these are not,
right,
and
but
Cash Patel. I mean, these guys are going to get. I just don't see how he's going to get those.
no,
But maybe he does.
well, that's the thing is that like, okay, you primary these people out, but there's a reward waiting for them on the other end. So it's like, okay, you get primaried out, but now you're an extremely well-paid lobbyist, paid, you're making millions of dollars a year paid by Lockheed or BlackRock or whoever, right? I mean, so it's like, oh yeah, primary me, that's fine. Like the establishment will reward me for protecting them.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so
so that's where I'm kind of like, it's difficult to make a prediction. What I'd like to say is, man, it's going to be great in a couple of months when we have the answers to the Kennedy assassination, and we know about the aliens, and we know, you know what I mean? And
yeah,
because all these guys coming in, that's all they've said is like, oh, we're gonna, we're
we're
gonna,
gonna get the Epstein client list. We're gonna get all this stuff.
like, let's get rid of, way too much stuff is that Cash Patel. I mean, he's a little nuts, but some of the stuff that he says, well, some of the stuff he says is troubling, like, like the whole, like, we're going to go after political enemies and stuff like that. It's like, bro, didn't we just go through this? Like, but
It's
hey,
their turn.
now we're in charge, so now it's our turn. Yeah, it's like, okay,
You did to us. Fair game.
okay,
Yeah.
so that's to me, that's a problem. But on the flip side, the stuff that he's saying about, like, hey, too much stuff is classified and the government overuses it, and we need to put sunshine on. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I mean, that would be amazing. I have a hard time predicting that, because I just,
Yeah.
if history has proven anything, is that, if we can't keep a secret, we're going to try to keep it a secret.
We're gonna try.
Yeah.
I my predictions are a little less rosy. I think that within the first 25 days, there's going to be some really bizarro, distracting issue that completely derails everything, and it's going to be really stupid. I don't know what it is. Like it may be something. I mean, think stupidity levels like the trans bathroom issue.
Okay.
It's like very small. Nobody, there are people, activists get very, very heated about it in both directions, but like the number of people it affects, very small number. But anyway, like it's going to be something like that. That is just why is this what we're
And
doing?
how would it derail everything? Walk everybody through the
There's
playbook
going to
here.
be tons of political capital spent on it. You're going to use up all of your ammo all the time. There's going to be it's going to split the party. It's all this stuff, and it will basically prevent anything important from happening, because that will take up. So think of like healthcare the first time around.
Well, so let me propose one of the things it might be, right? So
Okay.
the last 10 days, I've been hearing nothing but the controversy that is splitting the GOP apart, according to everybody on YouTube, right? Is this
the H-1B thing?
The H-1B visas.
It's not gonna be that. It's not gonna be that.
Okay. All right.
Because that one is too detail oriented.
But it affects about the same number of people as need the trans bathroom. So
it is, but it's not juicy, right? Because it's like, well, are these legal or illegal? Well, they're technically legal immigrants, but the system's been abused in a way, so it's not been. The employers are doing weird stuff.
But go
with
listen
it.
to Bannon. Bannon is threatening nuclear war over this.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying.
He threatens nuclear war over everything. But
it's not that. If it was something where it's like the illegals are taking your jobs, then
that's easy.
Yeah, then you could just put banners out, people march in the streets, on both sides. No human is illegal, etc. But this one it's like, well, how many and in what, and like which industries were using it, and you've got people that were doing it correctly, and then it's wonderful, and so it's like, that one's not going to be it.
But I'll just say as a just to stick to my candidate here. Vivek made a complete left, and I feel bad for the guy, because I'm just like, that was dumb. That you shouldn't have done that.
What did he do?
He came out and basically said on Twitter that this whole thing boils down to it's an indictment of Western culture. Is that Western culture rewards laziness and jock type behavior and social skills higher than the real producers of the world that value math and STEM and whatever else. And he's basically like, it's like, if you grew up watching Saved by the Bell and you identified with Zach and whoever instead of who was the other guy, Screech, I guess. you know, then you're part of the problem. I can't remember how he did it, but it's just so dumb because it's like, dude, most but the point he was trying to make, I think, is not a bad point. It's like, well, hey, if you don't if you look at Asians and Indians, stereotypically, to be racist here, to pick up on our first theme. Are they better at math genetically, or just do they perform better on math tests? Whatever it is, right? They kick our butt on math and science and all these other stuff. And of course, as an Indian himself, right? And he's like, look, our culture, the culture I grew up in, Vivek speaking, right? They valued academic achievement, and I've been able to do all this. You guys value, a sports trophy or a camaraderie, esprit de corps, whatever the case may be. And I eat y'all for lunch, basically, is the deal. And America needs to get its act together, is what he was trying to say. And okay, there's a part of that I don't disagree with, but in the vast scheme of things too, like
why weigh into this issue like
why
that?
why would you do that? Like, that's
like, why don't you make that point at another time?
I feel like for him it was like, and of course I'm psychoanalyzing here, but I can almost see like the nerdy kid that's grown up to be somewhat of a success, but he's still kind of looked at as a nerd, right? Is like, hey, it's our moment now, bitches, and it's just unfortunate because it took the whole thing into this, and now the entire conversation is around, the jocks versus the,
Yeah, that's a social media thing. It's not going to be that. It's not going to be that. It's going to be some. I don't know what it is. It's going to be something that is going to burn up maybe a year and a half of trying to get something, and it's going to be one of those where it's like, oh, can we get this passed through reconciliation, and maybe we can do it as part of the budget, and oh, we're going to get the majority whip on TV to talk about it, and and people are.
Somebody's got to go meet with the parliamentarian.
Yeah, and it's going to be totally dumb, and it will just burn the first year. And so then after that, House is going to switch.
You got the midterms, yeah.
House will flip. I think Senate actually goes more Republican in the midterms, but whatever. And then you wind up with judicial appointments, which will be fine, and then executive orders that the next president will
attempt to undo.
Vow to undo. Yeah, campaign on undoing. So that's my prediction.
That's exciting. But in the final analysis, they didn't screw things up too bad. So we get another bite at the apple. 2028.
It's another one where you
can solve some problems then.
It's another one where you pay your taxes and you kind of like, I could have just flushed this money down the toilet and it had the same effect. But there you go, Uncle Sam. I mean,
so you don't think they're going to annex Canada and Greenland and everything else?
No. We're not going to do any of that stuff. The Greenland thing, we already have a military base on Greenland.
Yeah, but we need it. We need it for our national security. No, Greenland. We need Greenland for our national security.
Yeah. So
yeah, and Denmark just needs to understand this because we need it.
Yeah.
So they need to
this is one of those where I kind of feel like Trump on his tombstone, whenever it is he passes away and he's interred somewhere, that'll have all these things on it, real estate, television, politician, president of the United States. And then the final one, as like his final title will be
Savior of Greenland.
No, it'll be Supreme Ringmaster. Right? The person who could run the circus better than anybody else ever.
That's a fact.
Invent new ways to get people entertained. And it's like, what are we talking about? So he's got all these appointments. I think it's cover for the appointments. Like Hegseth or Gabbard is trying to get enough Republicans on board for her to become DNI and all this other stuff. And what are people talking? You know what we should do? We should just invade Greenland. And you're like, everyone's like, oh my God, and it's perfect. It's like, well, so what about the Tulsi thing? Yeah, whatever. Greenland.
Whatever. Have you heard about Greenland?
Have you heard about Greenland? He told Trudeau that it was that Canada was the 51st state, and then
Governor Trudeau,
and then Trudeau resigned because he couldn't take all that alpha energy from His Excellency Donald Trump.
Yeah, he wilted up, man. Wilted up.
I mean, it's I think it's theater. I think it's intentionally theater. And I mean, nobody can attack a place that has a U.S. air base anyway, because
Oh,
so it's like, what we already have Greenland. Like, what are you talking about? It's like, yes, on
he said
paper it
Don Jr.
belongs to
over there. He
Denmark.
said Don Jr. over there to and Charlie Kirk. They're doing a fact finding mission.
No, they're having a great vacation.
They're they're they're,
They're
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 hitting the Eskimo brothels.
they're sitting in a hot tub with like the Greenland beach volleyball team, and they're drinking cocktails.
Can
I
you
don't know what
believe this?
they're
Can you
drinking
believe this?
Finnish long drinks. It's great. Like,
Yeah,
that's what's happening.
I think absinthe is still legal up there. I think that's probably what they're doing.
It's legal here in Texas, my friend.
Just
That's
like
what we should have been doing this whole time.
that's what we should have been doing this whole
Should have
time.
been getting
Just
bombed on absinthe.
Interesting, man. Well, okay. So we did predictions. We did a little bit of the cabinet. We did racism. What else? What else we talked about here? We did Jan 6. I mean, we
covered everything we're going to cover this time.
This has been a pregnant conversation, pregnant with possibility. And yet here we end stillbirth yet again. We got close. This was good though, dude. This was good.
What are you talking about?
Next week, same time, same place.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Next week we should talk entertainment.
Yeah, because
I got to watch an episode or two of the new Star Wars show, because apparently no one else has.
Which one?
I
haven't.
Yeah, Skeleton Crew.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I'll
watch a couple episodes too.
This is one of those things where it's like Star Wars is officially dead. Like, a whole show comes out starring Jude Law, big budget. No one even knows. Doesn't matter. Nobody cares.
That's really sad, dude. I mean, what they've done to that brand is unfortunate. Did you hear Lucas's comments on the new trilogy?
No. What did he say? It was really bad.
It was really. I mean, it was really good though. He's like, he's like, look, obviously, like, so he did the first 3, which we now call the second 3, and then did the prequels, and of course everybody pans the prequels, right? And so
not anymore. They look fondly on them now.
and that's his point. He's like, this whole new trilogy, 7, 8, and 9, whatever you want to call them, they're literally anti. They're trying to undo. It's like, oh, the first one is, let's forget about the prequels, and then the second one, the Last Jedi, is actually, let's forget the last movie. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting. And then the last movie is, let's forget the last 2 movies.
Well, it's definitely a case of like, why did you buy this? Like, I thought, and this is what Disney
$4
said.
billion.
This is what Disney said when they bought Lucasfilm. Was they're like, look, we want, because they bought, it was Star Wars was the big one, but then of course Indiana Jones as well, and some other stuff. And they're like, we've been a princess factory. It's time for us to appeal to a masculine audience, and this is what we're going to do. It's like, okay, great. And so then immediately, like, so what are we going to do with our new Star Wars films? Strong female lead. Like, we're gonna like.
It was good. I liked The Force Awakens. The other 2,
really?
Yeah, but I did. I
it's okay. It is one of those like, oh look, desert planet. Nobody is actually the chosen one. We're gonna find out their parents. All of a sudden, it's like, wait, this is the first. This is episode 4. But now Luke's a girl. Yeah.
Again.
Poor Daisy Ridley. Like, although actually not poor Daisy Ridley. Daisy Ridley,
she's fine.
She was nobody. I think she was making ends meet bartending when she got the call that she was in the new Star Wars film.
I love that for her.
Whatever was wrong with those films, it's not her. She's fine. She's great.
Yeah, she's great.
It's whoever makes the decisions and the writing is the problem.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know about this one. Yeah. All right, yeah, sounds good, man. Tune in next week for entertainment.
Yeah. All right, man. It's good to see
brother.
you.
Yeah, thanks for being on.